brilliant vision in this piece, and the tension just gripped me in its palm like I was one of these birds trapped in a cage. The storyline of the constraints and judgment put on women in this time and their lives, where it could feel like they could fall apart with one withering look or with one rumor escaping, was really well captured by the symbol of the birds in the cage. And as they started to get their feathers ruffled and riled up, the more the tension built, and the more it felt like the cage was becoming too small for them, trapped by their own lives, trapped by conventions and a confining society. The wardrobe and set design and environment, the set dressing were gorgeous, all very clear vision that transported me back to those times. And I think the actors held themselves with the restraint and the biting judgment, to carry the weight of the social repercussions on them throughout. I thought they were brilliant performances, and all of them really built the world and built that tense mood throughout, and allowed it to escalate really brilliantly.
The writing, the set in the mansion of this Regency or Georgian period, the wardrobing for the characters was perfect, right to the hair. I just loved it. Um, the story of this social controversy was so well handled, and the women's each getting a turn to speak and say their thoughts about what they think is happening. It's terrific how the canaries in the cage reflect the tension in the room. I thought that was clever. And the moment where one of the wives, the wife of a lawyer, reveals the bottom line of what's happening with some of these men and their relationships with other men, the silence in the room, but the expression on all the women's faces was just, it was masterful. And the way some were lit, the innocent wives were well lit, while the others were in the dark shadow, more or less, of the room. Um, the very heartbreaking scene at the end with the one wife who's in tears and she knows her world's about to come crashing down, sensing her husband will be in trouble, and it just, your heart breaks for her.
I think it was a really interesting concept of these women in high society and like Victorian society talking about, the gay men in their social circle and in their community. Because, while it wasn't socially acceptable at that time, like it's not like gay men didn't exist, and the secrecy about all of it, the gossipiness about all of it, the questioning, the outside looking in aspect out of all of it. It's really interesting to watch, and is really interesting in this time period for sure. Sound, not sound design, costume design, hair and makeup, all really well executed, added to the piece, um, and it just made everything flow so smoothly.
A period piece in short form is a bold choice to make. These costumes, production design, hair and makeup, it gets pricey real quick, but they kept it smart, keeping it down to two locations. The costumes and hair and makeup is lovely. A group of women lead this room, and town gossip gets the best of them. The trapped yellow canaries that end up squawking to match up the symmetry to the ladies, lighting a fire of emotions as it's revealed that there's been a whorehouse in town, whispers of homosexual affairs happening inside the doors, and that a list of those in the house are threatened to be ousted. A glare heeding a warning to one of the ladies, our protagonists within the ensemble of ladies, that her family will not save her. These group of women feel threatened, ready to attack one's weaknesses. All the while, each and every single one of them carry a burden of their own secret and trying to hide their own indiscretions. It really keens in on what it was like to be a woman at this period of time.
And the women spend time gossiping about as they wait for the carriage. And I just loved how the birds are chirping. You have the birds in the background, and they are symbolic of these women chirping about. and they're carrying these heavy secrets. So they're married to men, or there's men in this town who are with other men. And there is this threat to publish a list of these men who owe a debt to a man who owned an establishment that allowed these men to enjoy each other in private. And so he's threatening to make this public if they don't pay these debts. What's interesting about this is the subtext is king in this, because these women are all talking about this woman's husband without saying anything directly, but it's so apparent. It's so apparent in her silence. It is so apparent in her looks. It is apparent in her face and what she doesn't say. Such strong performances. I mean, it's like you're carrying the burden of your husband desires on your back, because in this day and age, this affects you. Excellent dialogue, excellent, back and forth between the performances. Everyone had a very distinct personality. It was very obvious. And then the subtext within the dialogue was just very strong.
The performances were excellent, so much subtext and controlled emotions about secrets. It had the real feeling of a Jane Austen period piece. The wardrobe and hair design were impeccably done, as was the setting of the wealthy estate. As tensions rise, the use of the chirping caged birds worked really well as a parallel to these chattering women trapped in their corsets and by societal convention. The screenplay and direction were so well done.